Hello students, this is Mathew. Welcome to the discussion of the poetry section of your General English course, Pearls from the Deep. In this lecture, we will be discussing a very simple poem, which is the sixth poem in your Module 4, which is titled My Grandmother's House. The author of this beautiful little poem is Kamala. From the picture itself, you might be familiar with this extraordinary writer that Kerala has contributed to the history and annals of Indian literature in English. Before getting into the details of the poem, we shall explore Kamala, the author, as a poet. Kamala, as you may all be familiar, is also known as Kamala Suraya, and she is a bilingual literary figure in contemporary English literature. She has written both in her native tongue Malayalam as well as in English. She also goes by the pen name Mathew. She was born to V.M. Nair, who was a former managing editor of Madhurabhumi, and Nalapata Bhalamani Amma, who was a very renowned Malayali writer. She spent her childhood between Calcutta and Nalapat ancestral house in Kottayam, and her writing style is most famous for her unique treatment of the theme of love and her explicit expression of feminine sensibility. When we analyze the biography of Kamala, we understand that she was a mixture of tradition and modernity. Her traditional and literary knowledge came from her exposure and the connection to Nalapat House and her uncle, who was a famous writer at the time, and also the influence of the literary capacity of her mother, Balamani Amma, who was a very prominent writer in Malayalam literature at that time. And also at the same time, because of her father's job, she was also exposed to a sort of modern Western knowledge while she was doing her education in Calcutta, as she had to relocate with her parents because of her father's job in Calcutta. This confluence of the traditional values and the literary knowledge that she has gained from Kerala, as well as the modern and Western ideologies and knowledge that she was exposed to at Calcutta, shaped her psyche. And she also immediately started writing. Her first poetry collection appeared in Indian PEM in 1965. Some of the most prominent collections of her poems are Summer in Calcutta, which was published in year 1965, The Descendants, which was published in 1967, The Old Playhouse and the Other Poems, which is one of the most popular collections Kamala wrote, which was published in 1973. She was honored with numerous awards, one of which was given for her Malayalam writing, Thanappu, which was awarded Sahitya Academy Award, and she later won Poetry Prize of the Asian Anthology volume in 1963, and she was also a nominee for Nobel Prize, and she has won numerous other awards like Edutachin Puraskaram, Vayanar Puraskaram, to list a very few among the titles that she has won. So getting into the poem under our study, that is My Grandmother's House, this is a poem that at first appeared in Kamala Das's first collection of verses, which is titled Summer in Calcutta, which was published in 1965. It is a very autobiographical poem with elements of her own life written in it. It is confessional in tone. It is confessional in tone, and it is nostalgic in essence. In short, the poem is a reflection of the poet's longing for her ancestral house, that is Nalapat House in Pune, and that house being a place where she has spent some of the happiest days of her life. She is recollecting that house as a nostalgic place where she experienced love, in contrast to the loveless married life that she is leading at the present as she is writing. So she is deeply reflecting on her past She's trying to conjure all the pleasant experiences of her past to allow her to live through her present drudgery. So we'll just simply read the poem. There is a house now far away where once I received love. That woman died, the house withdrew into silence. Snakes moved among books I was then too young to read, and my blood turned cold like moon. How often I think of going there, to peer through blind eyes of windows, or just listen to the frozen air, or in wild despair, pick an armful of darkness to bring it here, to lie behind my bedroom door like a brooding dog. You cannot believe, darling, can you, that I lived in such a house and was proud and loved? I who have lost my way and beg now at strangers' doors to receive love, at least in small change. Now that we have read the poem, the immediate understanding that we gain is that we have a woman who is in a different place, probably married, far away from her own house, who is currently not experiencing love. And she is reminiscing or reflecting about her past, especially her grandmother's house, where as a child she received unconditional love. After her grandmother's death, she has exhausted all such unconditional love, and now as a married woman, she is begging for at least a little bit of love. So, as she is stuck in a loveless marriage, she is trying to think and reflect on her childhood days and more pleasant younger days, rejuvenate herself and think of herself as a person who once lived with a sense of self. We shall explore the poem line by line. For instance, take the first sentence. There is a house now far away where once I received love. She's talking about the fact that once upon a time she received love when she was in a house that is now far away from the place she is in currently. So currently the married speaker is feeling an acute sense of distancing. She has left her grandmother's place after her marriage, and she is in a house where she is living with her husband, and she is feeling the mental and physical distance she has between her grandmother's place. The physical distance comes from the fact that she has come away from the grandmother's place to her husband's place or her current home. The mental distance is, however, in terms of her reception of love. Grandmother's place as a place where she felt a sense of self, a place where she was loved unconditionally, and it is very far away from the mental space where she is now in the marriage, where she feels that she is not loved. So sitting at her house, sitting in her new house, she is recollecting her childhood, which she spent in the grandmother's house occasionally, and how endless and boundless was the love and affection that she received from her grandmother. So as she is remembering, as she is reflecting on her childhood, this memory is actually agonizing her. And now she acknowledges that the death of her grandmother means the death of the unconditional and pure love. She will never again receive a similar kind of love now that her grandmother is dead. Now that she is married and is seeking love, she is reminded of the fact that in her ancestral house at Malabar, she was very much loved. And because of that, and also because she is remembering about the house in Malabar with a nostalgic mood, as the poem progresses, the speaker informs us that the very loving grandmother she had is now dead, and her house reflects her absence by being very desolate. If you notice these lines, you can understand how beautifully the poet has captured loss of her grandmother's life as grieved by the house itself. Life as grieved by the house itself. Having lost her grandmother seemed to be shared by the house. This is very beautifully expressed through the phrase, the house we choose. The house is also deserted and snakes are snaking among the books these days. As the life and light and soul of the house grandmother dies, the house also loses its vitality. All the books that were there in the house, which were inaccessible to the author earlier in her childhood because she was too young to read them, now is lost to snakes after grandmother's death. Now, all those books seems to her as atrocious as snakes, and it is filled with snakes, and she cannot reach them and she cannot access them again, just like when she was younger. And her blood turned cold like the moon. Her blood is becoming cold as there is nobody to love her the way she wanted now that her grandmother is dead. The poem progresses to explain the poet's desire to revisit the house even after the death of the grandmother. You can read these lines. How often I think of going there, to peer through blind eyes of windows, or just listen to the frozen air, or in wild despair, pick an armful of darkness to bring it here to lie behind my bedroom door like a brooding dog. Speaker here expresses her desire to revisit her ancestral house. She wants to look through the windows. She wants to look through the windows through which her grandmother used to look. This is a place that was associated with a lot of security and protection and love. And revisiting this house, even though it is desolate, will offer her more things rather than her current house in the city where she is trapped in a loveless marriage. She is expressing in these lines her desire to go back, to enter this desolate house, remember the love she received there, and peep through the dust-ridden or the colored panes of the window, which are closed after the death of the grandmother. So if you closely analyze some of the imageries Kamala has utilized to communicate to us how intensely this house means to her. The imagery that she uses of blind eyes of windows. She's calling it blind because there's no one in the house to stare through the windows. And also because the windows are permanently closed. So the windows are not opening its eye to any sights outside because it has been closed for a long while. It is either completely dusty or there is nobody from inside to actually watch anything from outside. So the window is blind. This is the usage that Kamala Das is trying to communicate to us. And then she also refers to frozen air. Here the air is frozen as contrasted to when grandmother was alive and there was a lot of people in the house. There was a lot of warmth and empathy and love that was shared in the house, and thus air is representative of life. And when everybody was there and when it was a house that was occupied, there was a lot of warmth and empathy and love that was running. And now with the grandmother's death and the desolation of the house and the closure of all the windows and absence of any light there, air is frozen. The air is trapped within the house. There is no essence or there is no evidence of life there. Hence the usage or the imagery of air being frozen.
Rest of the poem we'll discuss in the next class. Thank you.